welcome to Onesies, the podcast of one-season wonders and blunders. My name's Andrew.
My name's Emily.
And this is the podcast where we talk about this season, Automan. And we are on episode 6 of Automan, Flashes and Ashes. Okay, so what are your three things?
I'm going to go with What a Hunk. I'm going to go with Underoos. And I'm going to go with Hoochie Daddy Shorts, since we're on the subject.
Okay, I'm going to go with... Okay, so in reverse order, I think. Lost My Girl. Oh, and it's close, but also you had that beating coming, Wally. And that's more about her. So, oh God, capital idea, Watson.
All right. I had all of those things on my list as well.
So one thing, though, that I thought was going to be important was going to be Roscoe Tanner as the tennis pro. What the hell was that about?
No idea.
Okay.
No idea.
Yeah, so when you said there weren't going to be any significant guest stars this episode, you weren't kidding. The only recognizable person is Hari Rhodes, who was a Black actor in the latter half of the 20th century, did a bunch of TV, tried some regular stuff early on, it looks like, and did some supporting roles in movies, including Coma. And then he was also in one of the Planet of the Apes movies. The later Planet of the Apes movies tended to have one black leading man in the movie. I think they got rid of that for the new ones and just went all white, but whatever. fucking white people. Okay. So, and then let's not forget Tim Burton just, cast a bunch of black extras and turned them into gorillas with CGI. So
gross.
Yeah. So fuck Tim Burton. Anyway, moving on. Sorry. Okay, so this episode, actually, I don't know that the tone's going to change that much because this episode's about corrupt cops.
Yeah.
Killing their own, stealing arms to sell to...
Who knows?
Indeterminate parties. We never actually get that far. But the episode opens with cops, or it opens with a theft in the police impound, and then one of the a cop catches them, recognizes people, and so they kill them.
Right. And can I just step this in, because it wasn't enough to talk about to list, but I thought that the Cooney, the good cop in the situation who gets killed, I thought it was Eric Bogosian at first.
But it was not?
But it was not. It was no. Bogosian would have been noted. Bogosian would have been noted.
That's okay, because in the opening titles, I wrote down Ron Harvey. I think he was Don Harvey, who was a guy who was in... he was one of the bad guys in Die Hard 2, and then he did like a bunch of character actor stuff for a while. And I was like, oh, wow, Don Harvey's going to be a child. Nope, he's not in it because it's Ron Harvey. Yeah. It's basically how the whole episode goes in some ways. So the next scene is Lieutenant Jack thinking there might be something suspicious about this heist. Mm-hmm. But then he gets pulled into the office with the captain, who's there with Lieutenant Whitaker of Internal Affairs. So Lieutenant Whitaker is a man in 1983 with a late 70s stash going on.
Looked great.
Yeah. So they make an offhanded remark about how he wants to be DA. Mm-hmm. And you think it's just a joke, but it's not. It's actually a freaking subplot. So
I don't know much about police work. I guess I just assumed to be a DA you needed a law degree, but you have to have a law degree. It's an elected
position. You live in LA, figure it out, man. Who'd you vote for? Did they have a law degree, or are they just some person? Who plays Whitaker?
Yeah, he's listed.
Jeff
Pomerantz. He's one of the top listed.
Oh wow. Too. Ron Harvey played Frank Cooney. Okay, so...
well, there you go.
Yeah, there we go. So it's kind of a funny scene because, Lieutenant Jack Curtis, top cop in LA, who gets called out of the country on cases, is voicing his concerns. And basically they're like, nobody cares what you think, Jack.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, okay. But then Wally has something to talk to him about, even though Jack can't do anything about it because he's off the case.
Yeah.
But
he just wants to prove to somebody that he has a friend.
Basically, he's like, I knew Frank Cooney in the academy and he's a good guy. And
we haven't talked in a long time, but he would never do anything like this.
Never do anything like this. Followed by, oh, by the way, in the last 2 weeks, I ran up a bunch of data for him, including the stock of weapons in the armory.
Yeah.
So then there's this great moment at Jack's desk, which has a big poster of New York behind it.
I saw that too.
I was weird. I was like, what's okay?
Yeah.
Like Jack Curtis really just wants to be a New York cop.
Like, he looks like he would fit it. He would fit the bill.
He doesn't get kidnapped this episode. No. Spoilers, folks.
Another one.
Like it's a pretty good episode for him. But then Wally and Jack need to have a thin blue line conversation. So is Wally going to report Frank Cooney's illegal records lookup, or is he going to be a good friend?
Yeah.
And Jack tells him, bros before hoes, dude. Bros before hoes. You never narc on your killer cop friends. So cool. Just fuck them all. Okay, sorry.
Except in this case, he was not a killer cop. But if he was, then you don't turn your back on him.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to the next point where they have a comment where Roxanne also tells Wally bros before hoes. Okay, so then we get an apartment shot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, wait, before the end of that scene, Jack tells Wally that they're friends.
Yeah. It's like, we're friends. It was very weird.
So you know, Wally, you're my friend. And I was just like, wow,
and it makes me wonder what Captain Jack's or Lieutenant Jack's getting up to.
Well, also, maybe it was just as simple as Lucy was watching the show and she's like, nobody says they're friends with my son. Make somebody say they're his friend. Okay. So it's back to the apartment for Automan's intro.
Yeah.
He seems really surprised. Wally seems surprised when Automan shows it, like, oh, wow, it's Automan. Like, it really feels like a 6-year-old. Some of it feels very cartoony, this episode. Not all of it, but that. And so they're going to go investigate the cops that shot Cooney. Or no, Cooney was knocked out. They don't even say that. They say the cops who shot Cooney say they were knocked out. And that when they came to, they saw him doing it, but then his accomplices must have killed him.
Yeah.
So thanks to Automan, Wally knows that the DA or the Internal Affairs was investigating these cops and then stopped investigating them and destroyed the report. But so now it's up to Automan and Wally to go investigate them at a magic club.
Oh, this was beautiful. So they take the autocopter, right?
Mm-hmm.
For no reason.
Oh yeah.
For no reason. And they land, but before they do, they make a couple jokes. So there's the joke about people driving a silver Camaro having
I thought it was a silver Corvette,
whatever. It doesn't.
Which also an LAPD uniformed officer shouldn't be able to afford, but you know, if he's a fucking killer cop, he
Lieutenant, what's his name, is driving a freaking Porsche or something. So maybe corrupt cops drive better cars.
Yeah. Okay.
But they make some joke about them having machismo issues for driving a silver Corvette. And then your first point, they make a weird
capital idea, Watson. And then they have this weird, I thought you were Watson. And it's just like, we've never had a Sherlock Holmes bit in this before. Why are we introducing one now?
Well, they did make, I think the last episode, they made a comment about,
did they?
Yeah, they made not Sherlock and Watson, but the sidekick when Wally comes in as the accountant.
Yes,
he's like, I thought sidekick wouldn't have gone over as well.
Oh, and then this episode also has power source talk.
Yes,
a lot of power source talk.
couple
but then
but it plays into the plot. I think that's why.
It does. So they get out of the chopper and they're like, oh, we need to get a power source going for Automan. But then some ladies see him.
And he's still in his Automan gear, his little reflective suit thing. And they're very taken aback by him. And one lady says, what a hunk, which is, obviously the first thing I think of when I think of Chuck Wagner. And he doesn't say, I find it funny because they treat him so oddly, Automan. Like, he doesn't say, like, a hunk of what? Like, he doesn't say that. They treat him, because remember, part of it is he doesn't understand, like, the nuances of human speech,
He's not used to being objectified by women, which women always do. Obviously, Emily. Obviously.
Yeah.
You're just not having my shit today. All right. Okay. So this is where we find out it's a magic club, because they're like, are you one of the magicians in the show here?
And then he magics Cursor to change his clothes out of his auto outfit and into regular clothes, which is just like a button-down long sleeve shirt and a pair of auto jeans. Now, you had sent me this clip, and obviously it was my favorite part of the episode, where he's got these jeans on and then Cursor spells out auto jeans on the butt pocket, like Jordache or something. It made me laugh so hard, and I immediately searched for Automan underoos, which do not exist, unfortunately. But if underoos want to come back,
yet,
yeah, we still have to talk about our reboot of Automan, how that would work in 2022,
right? Okay, so they get into the club, and there's going to be a seance in the club. So we're a little bit into the episode, but basically it's not. It's a mix of a magic show episode and a corrupt cop episode. It's very weird. And then there's tennis. But yeah, so the bad guys want their money, and they're threatening Hari Rhodes, which does not go well for them, because he points out that they killed a cop and he owns them now.
And that wasn't part of the deal. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, oh crap, did I miss the powering up?
Yeah, you missed the powering up. So they follow the dirty cops behind backstage, and they find a power source, which looks like an electrical box, but apparently it's a generator. And it's what the old woman, whose name escapes me now, the character's name, who's going to perform the seance. It's her generator that she uses to do special effects and stuff for the seance. And he destroys it by powering up for which doesn't change anything at all. I think Desi says, oh yeah, you're starting to get a little blurry along the lines, but we don't actually see it. But when he does it, he says something like, refreshing, or something like that, right? When he pulls his hand away, it's really stupid. And then Automan goes one way and Desi goes another way, and Desi gets caught.
And then
he's listening in on the cops and Hari having their conversation.
He's doing a bad job being a snoop.
Yeah.
But then Automan comes up and says, hey man, this is my assistant for the special effects show. And so Automan and Cursor do the optical effects for this show. Cursor flies around the room,
scaring the crap out of people.
And it makes you wonder, like, it's 1983. I bet one of those pointer pens would have the similar effect. They're like cats.
A laser pen, yeah.
But then Automan holographs himself in, and so Hari goes down with Automan to confirm that they're actually special effects guys. Yeah. But then he goes back up and lets Wally out because they are special effects guys.
Because Automan, his little trick works, where he disappears from next to Hari and appears on stage in his little auto costume, which they never show him changing back into the regular clothes, but next time we see it, he changes.
His teleportation powers work in this one.
Yeah.
So the ladies want his autograph when they leave.
Oh, you mean his autograph? Huh?
But then they're going to leave to follow the bad guys. Only Wally sees Lieutenant Whitaker arriving. And
in his Porsche.
In his Porsche. So what's his face? Automan leaves Wally.
In the auto car. Like
in the
speeds
he
away.
Zooms off. Yeah, it's weird. And then I like to see because Wally's like, "Hey man, what are you doing here?"
Well, he's got to play dumb, right?
And the Lieutenant Whitaker's like, "I can go where I want to, can't I?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I know."
Well, and it's funny because he doesn't respond the same way because he's like, "What are you doing here, nebbish?" And
no, because they go.
But there's no like, I can go wherever the fuck I want to. I'm here for a fucking magic show, dickhead.
Yeah.
There's not the same response. This guy, the internal affairs guy, is really, really like comically. What is the word I'm looking for? My brain is fried. Egotistical and like, I don't know. It's like nobody can get away with being that much of a bad guy in real life, right? Right? Like at least he's not charming at all. He's just like bad guy.
It's 2022, Emily, please. He's at least traditionally handsome, which puts him ahead of all of the fucking villains we actually have. He's better looking than Brett Kavanaugh.
Well,
tried to picture Brett Kavanaugh with this man stash,
or with his hoochie daddy shorts on.
I forgot. Did you? Oh, you can leave this in because fuck that guy. Do you remember when he had his confirmation hearing and he paraded around his high school girls basketball team and all of the fucking GOP 7-year-old senators came down and were like kissing their hands and shit? Like,
no, I don't remember this.
It was gross. Yeah, there was a picture reminding us what a great situation everything is. Anyway, so Whitaker goes upstairs, meets Hari, and they're like, "Hey, we're both bad guys." And they're like, "Yep, I'm a bad guy too." By the way, there's a fucking cop here, stupid. You didn't like tell that cop anything, did you? They're like, "What?
What cop?"
So cut to the next day. Wally and Roxanne at work. Wally's in trouble.
Yes.
Because they found out that he was looking up classified police material for Cooney, and he's now a suspect and presumably on suspension. And he is on suspension.
He is on suspension, yeah.
So the Captain Drunky is very upset with Wally. What's interesting about this is that by the 90s, the internal affairs guest stars were always treated as like snitches. But like the captain in this one is a total suck up to the internal affairs guy. It's very funny.
Well, and we come to find out later that this guy actually is charming, even though he does not appear to us, to the audience, to be very charming.
Right.
Because they're all like rooting for him for DA and stuff. It's real weird. Like I don't see any reason why they should be. Except he's one of their own, I guess. Right.
He's some fucking racist white guy. Like he was probably 1983. Like there was probably a Hispanic person running. Like, can you imagine? Like, sorry, fuck them all. Anyway, they go back home. Or Wally's home. Automan shows up. They talk about magic. Wally found some proof. Maybe this is where they found the proof that the DA had suspected the cops.
I think Automan shows up and he says, "Oh, remember this report where these guys were investigating these guys for being dirty? Well, that report has disappeared." Right.
So Wally thinks he's going to go tell all of his friends, and they're going to say, "Thank you, Wally. You're the best cop. Your mom's right." So he runs out, leaving Automan. And Automan's like, "You know what, Cursor? I think that would be a good idea if I pretended to be a federal psychic cop and went over to the LAPD and helped Wally out." And Cursor's like, "Beep, beep, boop, boop, beep, boop, boop." And Automan's like, "Yeah, Wally never likes it, but the episode always ends well, so what the hell does he know?" Like, shut up, Cursor. Lucy's not here right now.
Yeah, it was really funny.
So, okay, they go back to Wally's back at work and Roxanne's being shitty to him.
Yes.
And so she's like, you can't go into the office right now, Wally. They're in there with a federal cop, which raises the question. Roxanne at no point in this episode acknowledges that she knows who Automan is.
She doesn't. I had that written down too. In fact, after Autogene, does Roxanne not recognize Otto? She says,
nope.
She says that she didn't see who went in because she wasn't at her desk.
Yes. So
as plausible deniability, but then when he walks out, when they all walk out afterwards, there's no like, huh? Like looking,
and there's none of that at the tennis game in second. Like
none of it.
Okay. So in the office, Lieutenant, or what's his face, Automan is selling the idea that he's now a federal psychic FBI man. And he gets invited to Whitaker's country club DA kickoff. What?
In this room, in this scene, Jack recognizes him. Like, oh, you've worked with Wally before. I thought you were in computer stuff, but now you're a psychic. So it's really disjointed, this, like, whether or not he's recognized.
He transferred. Yeah, and at the end, it's implied that both Roxanne and Lieutenant Jack know Automan's a hologram.
Yeah, so it's very just weird.
Yeah. But first, so Automan's going to go to the party, but Jack's not going to go. But then they leave the office where you expect Roxanne to see Automan, and she does not. But then we find out she's working for Whitaker on his campaign.
Yes.
And he's like, you're my girl.
Ugh. And then there's this whole scene between Wally and her where he's like, what are you doing? She's like, he's really nice. I'm sorry you two don't get along. And it's like, ugh.
You're going to the party too. My mom said that I had to be invited to the party. More. Okay.
You should be going as my date.
Instead of going to the party, though, Wally's going to go home and get his ass kicked.
Yeah.
Which I was like, did Emily like this scene a lot? The dirty cops bust in and beat the shit out of Wally.
I didn't like it this much at this time, only because Wally redeemed himself the last episode, being not so much of a weenie, which, yeah.
Well, this is going to get even worse because, okay. So Wally gets his ass kicked, cut to the country club. Whitaker is winning at tennis games, wearing shorts that Emily really likes on men.
No, not on that man. But Automan comes in wearing a full like warm-up suit. And I was like, well, he can't take it off because if he takes it off, he reveals his Automan suit underneath. But man, they need to switch outfits. In little Fila hoochie shorts, that would be great. Sorry.
Okay. So this is also where my note of, doesn't Roxanne recognize him?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. But
again, she's up in the stands and she doesn't seem to recognize him. And she's all dressed up for tennis. I can't believe that she ever played tennis wearing that.
She's at the country club. It's like Caddyshack too. It actually is like Caddyshack too. Sorry, folks. Like, if you get that reference, I'm sorry. I feel you. Okay, so but Whitaker and Automan are going to play tennis for the all of Whitaker's entire purse at this point, which is $25,000 for his campaign. And he doesn't want to warm up. And Whitaker gives Automan shit. And Automan's like, he's like, what, are you as good as John McEnroe? And Automan's like, well, I can play like John McEnroe, but I don't think I should use the abusive language in mixed company.
He uses the phrase mixed company. I thought that was so old fashioned.
1983. Oh God.
He switches from the regular ball to a cursor charged ball, and during their match, the ball does all sorts of unnatural things, like just dead stopping, moving from being what would be out to being in. So Automan scores points. All sorts of weird chicanery is happening, and what's his name? Whitaker doesn't know what's going on, and Automan is just playing it off like it's all about the backspin, baby. Weird.
And also teasing Whitaker about the case.
Yes.
He's like, I know this, I know that. You don't know what backup memory is on a computer, dummy?
Yeah.
Like, we can find those files. So then Wally shows up and yells at Whitaker about how his flunkies beat him up. And this is where Roxanne like rolls her eyes at Wally being assaulted,
Yeah.
which is not as low as she's going to go. But then Whitaker tells the cops that what he did was he dropped the investigation so he could further investigate these two dirty cops. And now it's fucked up because Wally interfered.
Yeah.
And he's going to file formal charges against Wally. So Captain's mad at Wally, Automan's beside himself, and Roxanne's like, I don't know, man, you ratted out some cops. You had that beating coming. And it's just like, cool. Like,
yeah, it was rough day for Wally.
Rough day for Wally. So Wally's like really sad about it in the car ride home. He's forever banned.
He lost his girl. He lost his
job, his reputation. I'm like, you lost your girl?
Yeah, I had that same
Seems like you lost your girl to Whitaker without even knowing it, dude. So, okay. This is where Automan gets the idea that they're going to look at pictures of Frank Cooney. And so they have to build a hologram.
So we go back to the mention that they were in the academy together, and they worked on some video surveillance project. And so Wally pulls out some old tapes of Cooney kind of catching a guy doing a drug deal or something, and I forget exactly what it is. The camera only catches the front of Cooney and only catches the back of the bad guy. They only got a C on the project, but it's enough that Automan can just look at it and save it and use it to create another hologram.
But in a very long time, like long enough that I forgot that it was a plot point.
Yeah, me too.
Because next, now we're into their plan. Wally goes to work and tells the cops who beat the shit out of him that Whitaker's going to sell them out. Then it's back to the club where Lieutenant Jack is staked out. Now, Lieutenant Jack is staked out very, very, very far away because it takes him forever to get there when he needs to get there.
Yeah.
So he can have a car chase. But he tells Wally that Wally, if he doesn't do this right, he's going to be making little ones out of big ones. And I don't know what that means. And in the context, it's about Wally going to prison. And I'm like, it's a saying. I Googled it. There's a bunch of posts about dads having said this to their sons. But I'm like, nobody makes prison jokes about like fucking doing laundry, man. Like it's always a male rape joke because in our culture that's funny. Yeah. So anyway, but then okay, we didn't talk about the music this episode.
And I just thought about it. I recognized some songs, but I didn't write them down. So
this was the only one I recognized is it's Love is a Battlefield.
Yeah, Love is a Battlefield. That's right.
The earlier ones, I didn't recognize them, and when I Googled them, nothing popped up. So it's possible they just ran unfamiliar music at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
So, okay. At the club, Automan juices up again. Whitaker meets with the two cops, and they're like, "Are you reopening the investigation?" And Whitaker says, "No." And he's like, "Do you believe me?" And they're like, "No." And it's just like, okay, this is high drama. But then, behind Whitaker in this shot is one of the fortune-telling machines, like out of big.
Oh yeah,
not quite big, but
it's a lady. It's a lady one, yeah.
It's a weird, like usually when shows do magic show episodes, they really lean into the like trappings of magic shows. They really don't here. It's like they just film on this club set and they're just like, well, we can make it work, but it wasn't like the intention of it. It's very weird.
Yeah.
So one of the cops says he's out of it, and then the other one says, sit down and shut up. And then Automan like comes over to say hi and is like, oh, what are you doing with these two corrupt cops that you're supposed to be investigating?
Yeah.
And I'm going to go sit over there with Wally.
And then Wally awkwardly waves.
Yep.
After it seems like he's been trying to hide from Whitaker. Like he seems like he's looking around anxiously, not trying to be seen.
Yep. All these cops in this magic club. It's very weird. it's like a sitcom or a horror movie.
Maybe they own a comedy, not a comedy club, a magic club. Maybe they own a comedy magic club. That would be pretty cool.
Ooh, there you go. So then it's time for Madame Russo's show. Yep. And she, thanks to Automan and Cursor, is able to resurrect Frank Cooney.
And she seemingly has been given a script, like all of this planning and plotting, because as soon as we cut away from them figuring out that they can make this hologram of Cooney, everything after that, it has been scripted and set up. So they told everything. So
Automan
it's funny
comments on writing the dialogue.
Yeah, it's funny that there's just mention of making this hologram, and then all of the other planning is just set aside for us to watch it come into play. It's very odd because it's elaborate.
Okay. Yeah, but
that's why Jack is camped out. That's why, I don't know. It's very weird, but I guess he needs to destroy the generator again in order to have enough power to project Cooney, I guess.
That doesn't.
Sure. Yeah.
They really have not gotten into the logic of Power Man's or Automan's power needs.
Yeah.
So up on stage, Cooney was like, I was murdered. And the cops start yelling about how it was Whitaker's idea and start pulling their guns, which was very realistic. The cops running around places shooting it up is fine. I was just like, man, they just think they just fucking shoot it up and there's going to be no repercussions.
And there's people screaming and hitting the deck and all sorts of stuff, but nope, they just keep shooting.
Yep. So they run out. One of the cops runs out. The other cop is chasing him. And then Whitaker is sort of on his own. He grabs Hari and they run out.
Yeah.
So Wally has called this into the lieutenant, and it takes Lieutenant Jack a long ass time to get there. So long that the cop who wanted to run out on his collaborators is shot dead, and the other cop in the silver Corvette has started driving away. It took Lieutenant Jack that long to get there.
Yeah.
Good job, Lieutenant Jack. But then they spawn the auto chopper in front of 15 witnesses, at least 3. Like we see, or no, it's earlier where there was a guy standing there when they spawned the auto car and somebody saw him in the background. But here, so Whitaker sees them, Hari sees them, and at least somebody else in the background, but then there are cops all over the place too.
Yeah.
So they should have seen Wally and Automan spawn the autocopter. But once they do that, Whitaker's like, well, I'm going to go with you now.
Yeah, I'm on your team. You guys clearly have the resources.
Yes. So they basically leave Hari holding the bag, which seems about right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They have a car chase with the chopper and stop the guy. I don't even remember.
They land the helicopter in front of them, and it stops the car. And I don't remember how it resolves too much either.
The cops get there pretty quick. Automan goes off into the sunset though.
Yeah, he flies
does
off.
not hang out. He flies off. He makes a crack about the tennis team in prison for Whitaker. Roxanne shows up, when is she sorry? Is she sorry at the end? At the wrap-up scene?
Yeah.
So at the wrap-up scene, she's super sorry that she doubted Wally.
And Wally ceremoniously gets his badge back and
a medal of commendation of some sort.
The captain is all proud of him, and I'm sure that'll all fall by the wayside next episode.
But then they make some comment toward the end, and something about psychic something. But the punchline, to be in on the punchline, you need to know that Automan.
Yeah.
And Roxanne laughs at it. And I was like, oh, so she does know that it's Automan and she's just not bitching about it this whole time.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't tell her new fucking boyfriend that, like, the Fed that's out for him is actually a hologram run by her ex-boyfriend. But when Roxanne's laughing at it, I then noticed, because we freeze frame out, that Jack is laughing at it too. And I was like, why would Jack get this? Jack doesn't know it's a fucking hologram.
Yeah.
And they did the same sort of thing. I think it was last episode where they ended at the apartment with everybody having champagne.
Yeah.
And Jack's like laughing at computer jokes like, oh, the captain doesn't know what TikTok is. What a boomer. Like, just like, what are you talking about, Lieutenant Jack? Like,
yeah, it was very odd. I had made note of that too, that seemingly to be in on the joke, you need to know that Automan is a creation of Wally, and all three of them seem to be in on the joke, and yet there's no mention of it anywhere in the show. No, that anybody knows what he's getting up to. It's very, very strange.
And I'm looking now, and the guy who wrote it was Douglas Hayes. Oh no, never mind. So there was a guy named Douglas Hayes who wrote, I think, Twilight Zone and other stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that he was Douglas Hayes Jr. He's not. Douglas Hayes Jr. wrote Chips and Automan and The Fall Guy and MacGyver and Hunter, Silk Stockings, Pacific Blue, which is actually not a gay porn, but if you would like to look at the image here, it sure looks like one.
Yeah.
Walker, Texas Ranger. So, okay, I was like a little concerned that Douglas Hayes, Twilight Zone writer, wrote such a shitty episode of Automan. But if it's his hack son, that's fine. If it's his nepotism spawn, that's fine. Yeah, this episode, like, didn't have any good guest stars. Like, the whole they've done the corrupt cop thing in the first episode, and then it sort of disappeared. Like, they didn't even resolve it. So I don't know. It didn't have the fun of some of the other episodes. This one, I was just kind of like,
I thought it was perfectly fine, though. I didn't mind the guest stars. They weren't so bad. I mean, if the worst actor is going to be Captain Boyd, then I'm okay with that. You know,
that's a good point. And I mean, it's less weird than some of the other ones. Like, you don't have a subplot where it's all about, like, Whitaker being sad, and that's why he's doing all this shit, like the Cube Gulliger wedding one, right? But it doesn't have the magic show provides too much structure to any potential silliness, I guess, is my thing. And also, I was used to not hating Roxanne. And she sucked the first two episodes, but then she got better.
Yeah.
But I mean, now she just sucks again. Like, she's a fucking, like, she's terrible. Ew. She's not good enough for Lucille Ball's son. Come on. Sorry. Just saying.
But I enjoyed the Automan stuff. I mean, he's obviously, I don't know.
That's going to be the weird thing about the show, is that, like, Chuck Wagner's
he's pretty good.
Like, he can do this shit. Like,
I mean, this if you just took this as took the detective stuff out and took the fish out of water thing and just ran with it, I would be fine. Like, he's a hologram interacting with the real world, and it's weird, and he seems to have a better sense of humor about it than the show does, which we don't get to see that much this time, because there really isn't that much for him to do. Yeah, he does make that autograph sort of dumb wordplay thing, which is hilarious, and it made me laugh. But again, there's not much more for him to do with that. Yeah.
So,
well, this high energy episode of the podcast will be followed next week by what is the next episode 7? The biggest game in town.
Are we going to have a casino episode?
No. Ronald Tilson, a former computer expert for the city, fired for embezzlement, threatens the city of Los Angeles with total chaos and destruction if his ransom demands are not met. Walter and Automan have to work out who is behind the demands. So there's going to be hostages, there's going to be bombs, there's going to be something like that.
There is going to be Felton Perry.
Oh yeah.
Felton Perry as in Johnson from RoboCop.
Yeah.
And also some other things. So yes. Cool. At least there'll be Felton Perry. All right. Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll both be in better spirits next week. So it's a little more high energy. I'm so tired.
We'll see. 2022. Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.